Looks like it was.
Basketball quarter two.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the June 23rd meeting of the Kentucky Regional Planning and Development Agency. I'm David Vogel, Judge Executive of Oldham County, Chairman of the board this year. Happy to have all of you with us today. If you have a cell phone with you, I'd like to ask you to please turn it off or vibrate. Now we'll ask Jared to please call the roll.
Honorable John Black.
Here.
Honorable Bernard Bowley.
Here.
Honorable John Logan Brent. Honorable Sean Crothers.
Here.
Honorable Byron Chapman. Honorable Beverly Burton. Honorable Jack Kaufman. Mr. Matthew Nay for the Honorable Bill Dira.
Here.
Mr. Brian Dixon. Honorable David Eaton.
Here.
Mr. Kevin Beatty.
Here.
Miss Lena Muldoon for the Honorable Greg Fisher. Honorable Jeff Shaham. Mr. Keith Griffey.
Here.
Mr. Albert Tubby Purcell for the Honorable Treva Hodges.
Here.
Mr. John Hart for the Honorable Dana Eisen.
Here.
Mr. Andy Kraus for the Honorable Mike Burke. Honorable Todd Polak.
Here.
Honorable John Riley.
Here.
Honorable Joe Robinson. Honorable Jerry Summers.
Here.
Honorable Rick Tanini.
Here.
Honorable Jim Travis. And the Honorable David Vogel.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
By having a quorum of the boards, this meeting is now in session. I'd also like to welcome my deputy director, Kevin Nuss, here today with us. He's a the Oldham County representative as well. All right, next item is minutes. Do we have a motion to accept our minutes from the prior meeting?
Motion.
All right, Ms. Foley, second. All right, second. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5 on the agenda is normally a report from Tom Cole. Tom had an unfortunate incident yesterday in the parking lot where he fell and was injured. So, Tom, if you're at home watching today, we wish you a very speedy recovery. We miss you here today, but Jarrett is going to take your place and go ahead, Jarrett.
Big shoes, Bill, trying to replace Tom's place on the agenda, but as you said, Tom had a minor accident yesterday. I've spoken to him. Tom is doing well. You know Tom, he wanted to come in today. We told him to stay home the rest, but you'll see the May financial report in your agenda packet. Overall, the divisions are all in good shape as we move towards the close in our books for fiscal year 22. The one thing that will jump out is we are showing significant surpluses across all the divisions, and the majority of these surpluses will be carryover, and you're working with the funders to maximize the carryover amounts. And for example, in community economic development, the surplus is tied to our administration fees of numerous projects that will be carryover. The large surplus in the Every Community Counts program is due to us not needing to purchase any new vehicles this year. If you have any questions, we can try to answer it, but again, that next month, Tom will be here to give the June financial, which will wrap up the fiscal year.
Motion to approve the financial report.
Second.
Moving second, any questions on any of the numbers over here? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
No one opposed. Motion carries. Thank you. Now it's our pleasure to welcome Devon Holt, the Chief External Affairs Officer, and Amy Luttrell, President and CEO of Goodwill Industries, who are going to make a presentation on Goodwill Industries. So, welcome. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks good to see everybody. We appreciate so much this opportunity to take a few minutes of your board meeting and acquaint you a little more than maybe you already are with Goodwill Industries. So this is Devon Holt, and we're going to split this presentation, and he's got packets of information for you that we hope will be helpful to you. We are nearly a statewide agency. We have a territory assignment from our national office that encompasses 103 of the 120 counties here in the Commonwealth. And we try very hard to saturate that territory as best we can. Kentucky has, I don't know how many little bitty communities, so you can't be everywhere, but we have stores in 67 locations, and we have what we call opportunity centers in I think 7 different communities, and I think we're supposed to be at about 10 by year end. But I want to give you a little bit Goodwill 101. And then Devon's going to talk a little about a specific project that we have right now that's consuming a lot of time and energy from us. In your packet, you have on the first document on the left-hand side, you have a little flyer called I Had No Idea. And so it was pretty easy for us to think of a title for that flyer, because I can't tell you how many thousand times people have said to me after they've taken a tour, or we've been talking about Goodwill, well, I had no idea. That's what people say. So we tried to pull this together to have some of the pertinent facts to give people the basics of our Goodwill organization. We are a sizable nonprofit. We've been here for nearly 100 years. Next year is our centennial. And we've been helping people get jobs for all of that time. But currently, our approach to our mission is a little bit broader than helping people get jobs. We've always helped focused on jobs because we understand what a crucial role being able to be employed has in people's lives. And you see that stand out when people are able to be employed. And we see a lot of people in that situation. For the last several years, we have really dedicated ourselves to not just helping people get jobs, but helping people get out of poverty. So a job is certainly part of that. I never want to minimize the role of a job in that. But the fact is, we see many, many people who are not ready for success in a job, much less to get into a career track that is going to help them get all the way out of poverty. So we don't want to help somebody get a job and they just keep it for 30 days and then they have another failure and they go back home and sit on the couch for a year while they work up their nerve again to try again. And we don't want to help somebody get a job that is an entry-level job and they're just going to join the ranks of the working poor. So we intentionally expanded our own services and also began the process of forming close partnerships with other organizations, because the people who come to us tend to have a number of different barriers, not just one. And Goodwill is not going to have everything that they need. But if you've ever done a poverty simulation or a reentry simulation, and we've done both, you will, it just brings home to you how difficult it is for people to access everything that they need to address the barriers they have, especially if they don't have a car, they may not have a computer, they may not even know how to use a computer. The past several years also, as we've opened our doors wider, the primary group of people that have come just in droves reflects some of the things that are going on in Kentucky. And these are people who have been in prison, sometimes for a number of years, and people who are in recovery from addiction. And there's so much overlap between those two populations. Probably most of the people who come to us and have prison records are in recovery from addiction, and their addiction was the reason why they landed in prison. We have some other people who've been in prison for other reasons, and I just heard, I was at an event at midday today with some of our employees who are in management training, and they're graduating from a training class, and many of them shared where they were before they came to Goodwill. And I hear over and over and over again, nobody would hire me, nobody would hire me. So the young man that was telling us, one of them, that today, he said, you know, they'd say, well, your resume looks good, but, and he said, when I was introduced to somebody at Goodwill and I came in and I interviewed, she said, well, your resume looks good, but, and what came after the but was, she said, I need you to start tomorrow. So that was a game changer for him. We do hire a lot of people who come to our doors. We don't hire everybody. We work with a large number of other employers, but the ones who have the least stability at the time, we encourage to start at Goodwill, because we have more ability to just surround them with support and services that are going to help them gain that stability that they need. We have a relationship right now with GE. GE has not felt that they could consider our people up until recently, but now, and of course the job market is so tight, you know, that's probably an ingredient, but GE is now willing to hire many of our people, even if they have a criminal record, if they have worked for us for a given amount of time. And so they've established a track record, we can give them a reference. All that time they've been working with a career coach whose job is to help them focus on work issues and life issues so they can continue to make that progress. So we have lots of different services that we make available to our employees, because we don't want them to stay in an entry-level job indefinitely. We want them to use that as a launching pad, whether they move up within our system or whether they move out into another employer. So when you think about the, I'm a native Kentuckian, and it's always very frustrating to me when we see those lists that compare Kentucky with other states. And we're always near the bottom of the list, and the ones where the good end is the top of the list, and then vice versa. Whatever's the bad list, there's a number of areas where Kentucky does not show up well compared to other states. Workforce participation is one of those areas. I think currently we're number 43 out of 50. But we feel that the people who we assist are some of those people who can make a difference and moving that needle, and also the needles on things like health, crime, and poverty. So, and the reason I say that is because of the people who come to us, many times they have a rough background and they may still have a rough appearance. But I have really never seen people in my whole career who are more motivated than the people who we serve right now. And these are people who a lot of employers have not felt that they could hire. But these are people, you know, when you hear the statements in a labor market like we have today, well, everybody who wants to work is working. We have evidence every single day that that is untrue, because we see many people who want to work but either can't get hired or they're just not in a position, if they get hired, to make sure that that goes well and they can meet that employer's expectations. So we see so many people, so many more than we can serve. Goodwill services are available free to anyone who comes, but we put a lot of our own money into that, as well as doing some government grants and some philanthropy. We patch all that together, and I say the secret sauce that we have that many other organizations don't have is that we're able to bring some of our own money that we've generated through the stores to the table, and we have flexibility with that money. So we think of ourselves as gap fillers, which is just invaluable when you've got all these systems out here for people to find things, but there's still things that they can't find that they need, they really need. So we try to identify those gaps. And if we're doing one thing and we see a gap that we think can be more impactful, if we use our money and our efforts to fill that gap, then that's what we do. But we work closely with all of those partners. We work closely with legal aid. We work with the publicly funded workforce system. We work with mental health organizations. We work closely with addiction treatment agencies. We don't do addiction treatment, but we do have those close relationships. And we work with the State Department of Corrections and some of the local jails, judges, those kinds of entities, because we're trying to take a holistic approach together and have more of a seamless system that makes it easier for people to access what they need. So our locations are a key part of that, because we want to be accessible, we want to be convenient, got to have good bus service because most of our people don't have a car, and we want to be at various places in Kentucky. Here in Louisville, our main service location is at 909 East Broadway. It's kind of near the east end of Broadway, and that's a good location for us. A lot of people walk to us. A lot of people ride the bus. By the end of the year, we'll have another location that's down, and we're calling these opportunity centers, down on Preston Highway, that's south of the Waterson, in between the Waterson and Outer Loop, kind of close to Outer Loop. And then we'll also have a third location here in Louisville in about a year and a half that's over in West Louisville. And that's what Devon is going to tell you about, because that's a huge project for us. It's really a stretch, and you can imagine if you talk to various people that are trying to build something in this environment, it's a little bit more than we, and I'll take that a little bit back. It's significantly more than we anticipated, but we're going to get it done with the help of partners and supporters that we know and who understand how important this is going to be. Not only for West Louisville, but really for all of Louisville and for all of Kentucky, because we want to do everything that Goodwill can do to get Kentucky to the right end of those comparisons with other states. And we can do that. And our locations, especially the one that we're doing in West Louisville, are a critical part of our approach to doing that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Devon, and he's going to talk with you about our Norton Healthcare Opportunity Campus in West Louisville. Devon.
All right. So Amy set the stage to help you understand who Goodwill is. Now let me tell you what we are doing. We are about to embark on the largest construction development project in the history, the 100-year history of Goodwill Industries of Kentucky. And we believe that this will be ultimately a model for other communities, not just here in Kentucky, but quite frankly, around the country, to look at and determine how to build a functional environment that serves and moves people progressively along the line of self-sufficiency. So what is that? That is the Opportunity Campus that Amy mentioned to you. So we're building in partnership with Norton Healthcare in West Louisville, 28th and West Broadway, making a collective investment of $100 million to transform a 20-acre blighted brownfield site into an opportunity campus that will include a 125,000 square foot, what I call a one-stop lifestyle enrichment center. And in partnership with Norton, they will build separately on the same 20 acres, the very first hospital that's ever been built in West Louisville in more than 100 years. And so needless to say, that alone is a game changer in a community that has been notoriously underserved and undersupported in our community for many, many years. But part of what we wanted to do was not just show up as goodwill, because although we do a great amount of work in our community, there's a lot that we realize that we don't do that is supplemented best by partnerships. And so we are going to move our headquarters there. We're going to move many of our programs and services that Amy talked about that served, quite frankly, the hardest to serve job seekers in the Kentucky market. Those are people with criminal backgrounds, addiction histories, little to no education, little to no workforce experience, transportation challenges, childcare challenges. And we take that population and move them along the matrix of self-sufficiency. But we don't do it alone. In this facility, we are partnering with Kentuckiana Works, the region's workforce development agency. They're going to have their one-stop shop in our facility. Volunteers of America will co-locate with us and do some restorative justice programming there. Big Brothers Big Sisters is co-locating with us to do youth mentoring. We will have Tarp Community Credit Union there to do second chance banking for people who've ruined their credit over time. Help me, the Park Community, Kentucky College of Barbering. Kentucky College of Barbering is going to be there. If you know anything about barber schools, they can't charge you to cut hair until they have a license. So they're going to be cutting the hair and grooming our participants for free on our campus. And then we'll have the Legal Aid Society that'll also be there providing legal services. And so this is, quite frankly, a transformative project that has the ability to not only turn a blighted brownfield site into what I call a bright beacon of hope, but it will also serve to support a community made up of 9 neighborhoods and 60,000 individuals who now get direct access to resources that have evaded them and, quite frankly, have required them to leave their communities and go from one place to the next just to get a complement of services. Under one roof now, they'll get holistic services and be able to come in and walk out much differently than they did in the beginning of that process. So we're excited about it and think that not only will we have partners in Kentucky who will step up to support us, but there are others who are looking at this project already from other parts of the nation. And our hope is that we can get members of this board and other people in and around this region supportive of this project in a way that allows us to really kind of sound the trumpet and encourage people to invest in this notion of collaborative work, workforce development, community revitalization, and restorative practices for people who've been overlooked and underserved for quite a long time. And so with that, Jared, I know I'll be running close on my time, so I don't want to continue to talk. I'd love to pause and see if there are questions for Amy and I about this project. I know in your packet, you guys have a lot of good details, a fact sheet. You have a list of our partners, a press release that sort of explain what we're doing, some renderings as well in there that also give some perspective on all of that. But nothing beats being able to ask a question in person. So if you have any, we'd love to take them if you have the proof for us.
I'd like to ask you, I didn't, packet I got didn't have the first piece of literature you referred to. I didn't know that piece.
Does anyone else not have that? I brought some extras.
Yeah, I need one.
Is that right?
Yeah,
We got one.
well, got some.
And, this is really a very fine presentation. I think we all can be enthused about the resources and leadership that's come together in Jefferson County to put this project into motion. And it's something that is, definitely needed, and we certainly hope it will be a tremendous success. And I'm sure our KIPDA board members here, we represent 7 different counties in the area, are all still very concerned about the issues in West Louisville. I hope this will address and bring hope and opportunity and a new sense of purpose and enthusiasm to that area. We certainly all need it very much. A couple of times you mentioned national people looking or this or that. I'm free to say, but a little bit embarrassed. I've lived in Kentucky for 50 years, and I've always wondered, is Goodwill a private company? Public
I bet you
agency?
didn't know.
I think a lot of people, I'm one of these that had no idea. And are you is this a national organization, and this is the Kentucky
Yes.
branch? Or
Yes.
what is the structure here?
There's a membership organization called Goodwill Industries International, and it's primarily North America, so the US and Canada. There are a few affiliates in other countries. We pay dues to Goodwill International in order to have the brand and also get access to supportive services that they have, and they connect all of us. In North America, there are 155 Goodwills, separate agencies like Goodwill Industries of Kentucky. And so those connections and data sharing that we do are just so valuable to us. I don't think we mentioned that one of the projects we're working on right now is an adult high school that's coming to Louisville. And we ultimately will bring that model to other communities as well. We tend to pilot things in Louisville and then move it out to other locations in the state. But we're not a school. We would not have known how to do that, but we are under the tutelage of Goodwill of Central and Southern Indiana, because they came up with that model over 10 years ago. They're operating 15 schools very successfully. They keep getting requests to bring schools to new communities. And so we don't have to that's the value of being in the Goodwill network. We don't have to figure it all out by ourselves. But I don't report to Goodwill International. We have to comply with certain membership standards, but I report to a Kentucky-based board. And those are people from all across the Commonwealth who are our governing board of directors. So that ensures that Goodwill of Kentucky will be responsive to needs in Kentucky, not somebody at a national level that decides what to do. So that's how it works. And our dues are about under 0.5% of our revenue, and they're based on our earned revenue. And Goodwill certainly is a nonprofit. Occasionally, you run into somebody who's looked at Facebook postings, which are all made up. Not all, but this one in particular is, that claims that Goodwill is not a nonprofit, and we are definitely a 501c3.
Absolutely.
And your revenue is generated through sales of things that come in through donations. Is that the primary source, or
It's the
Primary source. Your donated jeans go a long way.
Right.
Good.
It's the only thing we do that makes money. We're spending about $17 million this year of Goodwill's money that's come from those stores to support these services. And in addition, the revenue from those stores is covering all the agency overhead. So when we get government grants or that kind of thing, we can plow it into the services that we've just been talking about.
When someone drops off something at Goodwill, does that donation stay at that store, or is there some, let's say, back room operation that sorts materials between stores?
There is movement. We wish there weren't. We wish every store got exactly the amount of donations that they needed, but that's not the case. And we do have a number of stores in very small Eastern Kentucky communities and some other more rural areas throughout the state who get the donations that they receive there is very inadequate to stock a store. And so when we get stores in Louisville that have an abundance of donations, some of that will go to supply those stores. That adds some cost when you have to move things around, but it's a necessity for us.
When you think of goodwill, you think of generally, dropping off an old bookcase or a pair of jeans or clothes like that. Some of us in here may have other things we could donate of a more substantial nature, chairs, tables, perhaps old equipment. I don't know, you want or seek that type of material?
We are, most of our donations are clothing. We get a lot of housewares and we get some furniture. I will tell you that most of the furniture we get is not in great shape. So it's usually not our favorite donation because furniture takes up a lot of floor space, and it may or may not sell. And if we have to landfill it because it didn't sell, then that's another cost. And plus you have a greater possibility of back injuries. But people do bring us furniture and we accept everything that we possibly can. We also have some secondary markets for things that haven't sold in the stores. We are connected with salvage dealers. We've got an outlet store also down on Preston Highway where people who are primarily, they're looking for things they can resell in some way online. So we landfill as few things as we can, but that's another cost of our doing business because we get a pretty wide range of donations as far as the quality.
Anyone else have any questions or anything?
Going down there next to that Harris Court building I saw on the news.
I saw it on there,
About
about 10 blocks away.
Further west.
Yeah, but
Yeah, that's 18.
Just take over that site and finish that up.
We talked about it, but
Yeah.
that has been in limbo for quite some
It has
time
been.
while the state decides who they're gonna let contracts to, Medicaid contracts. And we just couldn't wait that long. And anyway, we think our site is a lot better.
Yeah, I think it is too. As a matter of fact, I mentioned to you that Norton Healthcare, we were about 80% of the way along in kind of getting ourselves ready and prepared to make an announcement when Norton Healthcare reached out and called us and said that they were looking to locate a hospital in West Louisville. They had looked at some properties, including the one that you just mentioned, and none of them seemed appropriate. And they thought it would make a great impact on the community if we could co-locate and join forces on one corner, two strong, stable brands that have the potential to do some real transformative good in the community. And so they overlooked that property as well. And I think for good reason. We've got a chance to do something special at 28th
The
Street.
chairman up front here, we have a new Goodwill being built in Oldham County right now.
That's ours,
That's
Crestwood.
It's the
Crestwood.
chairman's district, and he's got I think a 2019 Mercedes he needs to get.
Thank
So, Mr. Chair, we have to apologize to you and anyone else who lives near that store for our current store because we know it is very inadequate and we can't wait
Right.
to move to that new facility, our own staff, our donors, and our customers. So we're just thrilled about that location.
Oh, great, we're happy, very excited to have you building in Preston.
Love it. All right, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank The next item on our agenda is a report from Andy Rush on today's transportation policy.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Today at 12:30 in this room, as usual, TPC met, Transportation Policy Committee met. We had some distinguished guests, but I'll get more into that in the next agenda item, perhaps. We had a regular old business meeting, and in addition to the kind of super special meeting that we had today. So in the regular business meeting, we covered several things. Very, very notable was our Amendment 7 to our long range plan and to our TIP, our Transportation Improvement Program. That's the short range plan. Amendment 7 is notable because for the public involvement process in that amendment was as successful as we've had in a long time. And for that, And the reason, there's a reason for it, and the projects make the public involvement. The K&I Bridge, Kentucky and Indiana Bridge, the one that's owned by the Norfolk Southern Railroad, that project is at least it's re-entering our long-range plan. It was in our long-range plan years gone by. It was not put into our current long-range plan when that was adopted just a few years ago. Oldham Metro has asked to see that project get back into our long-range plan. Nothing's imminent on the bridge, to be put very clear. Some of the unanswered questions are still unanswered, but that hopefully the project inclusion into KIPDA's long-range plan could be some good things for that project going forward. For what it's worth, the open to public date when the project is scheduled to be open, at least roughly, is not until 2040. Okay, so that's as far out as we go. Okay, but there could be some preliminary work in the coming years to that. So that was very notable. We got a lot of feedback, a lot of good feedback, a lot of civil feedback, it was a lot of, hey, both sides feedback. It was awesome. It was really good. So I think that is notable, that amendment. There's a couple other projects, including a couple from Clarksville, a couple in St. Matthews, and at least one in Louisville Metro, and then NDOT has a sign project. They're officially making, if you've wondered why the Lee Hamilton on the Indiana side is State Route 265 and not I-265, well, you don't have to wait much longer. It is about to be I-265. So the project is a sign project to make that I-265. Kentucky, I think, will follow suit in not too distant future. Our staff presented some of our socioeconomic forecasts as part of our long-range planning activities. We forecast the population, households, and employment at what we call Transportation Analysis Zone, TAZ level, of which there are 984 in our 5-county metropolitan region. So we took our show on the road over the last couple of months, and thank you all for those that participated in that in your counties, where we looked into the forecast. By forecast, I mean how many people, jobs, and employment are in those small areas for the year 2050. Okay, so we built upon what we did a few years ago when we expanded it out to 2040. So now we're out to 2050 for our upcoming long-range plan with the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, which will be scheduled to be adopted next April. I'll skip the next couple agenda items because you'll hear from myself and Alex on those. But one more thing was Zach Herzog, our GIS department manager, he presented our updated crash analysis. So we through his team's skills and map making abilities. We've got some new methods to analyze crashes that I think is a more meaningful, a more holistic in terms of how many roads and intersections it includes. So we got some good things going on there. So that concludes my report on this agenda.
Is there a motion to accept Andy's report?
Second.
Moving second. Board have any questions for Andy in his report? Hearing none, all in favor, so say aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, Andy's now going to give us a certification review findings.
So whether you knew it or not, the last couple of days have probably been about the busiest days we have in a 4-year process, 4-year cycle here for the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization here at KIPDA. The reason why it's been kind of crazy and wild is because we had this thing called a federal certification review. What that means is once every 4 years, our federal agency partners from Federal Highways Administration, Federal Transit Administration, and in our case, since we are an air quality non-attainment area, where we don't have the cleanest air, Environmental Protection Agency was here as well. So we had 7 individuals from those agencies here in town over the last 36 hours, let's say. And so they come once every 4 years to certify the MPO's planning process. So it's not just us as staff, it's the planning process around the region. That includes Tarp, INDOT, and KYTC, to say the least, and others. So yesterday we took them, we commenced the site visit. We took them on a tour with the support of Tarp. We took them on a Tarp tour to show off some of the recent projects around our region. We came into this room and spent the afternoon in here covering lots of facets of the transportation planning process. We took the show back on the road for a public hearing last night at the South Central Regional Library down by Jefferson Mall. And then we came back this morning for some more of the back and forth on the various aspects of the planning process. And then at the TPC meeting, it all concluded with their preliminary findings. So in our region, or at least in Kentucky, MPOs in Kentucky get their findings immediately. So I'm here and I'm very pleased to report that we did well. So it was a successful review. We got several what they call commendations. Commendations are great job, you're doing great, you're exemplary. We tell other people about you, about what you do here. And so I want to really note those to the board today. One of them, and I mentioned it a minute ago, was the use of our GIS process. So I want to give Zach Herzog and his crew a ton of credit. We got a commendation for how well we implement maps into the transportation planning process as a resource for the things that we build as a staff, for the things that your all's agencies might utilize to develop your projects, and maybe as important as anything else for the public to see. Okay, to see the various facets of the transportation planning process. So that was awesome to get that commendation there. Secondly, but I mean these are all equally weighted. They have for a long time commended us for what's called our interagency consultation process. I mentioned a minute ago we are a non-attainment area. The air quality is not great here. Hasn't been ever. It basically hasn't ever been. So we have to go through a long process for our amendments and our updates of our long range plan and of our TIF that I mentioned earlier, so that we can show that those projects will help to conform to the air quality regulations. So we have to show that the emissions are not going to get worse. The air quality is not going to get worse by adding these projects. So our partners, we have a long-term partnership with Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District. And they have commended us on that once again, and that they take that process that we do here and they tell our counterpart agencies around the region and around the country what we do here. So I want to give Randy Simon a lot of credit on that one. And Randy Simon has done that. He's been working on that for longer than some of our staff has been alive, to say the least. So he's been here for a while, but he still does a great job in coordinating that. And the rest of the staff, when we go through that amendment process, it's an all hands on deck process. So that was the second one. The third one. In the last transportation act, actually 2 ago, but really put use in the last one, performance management, making us more accountable, us as MPOs, us as state DOTs, us as city and county governments on transportation. KIPDA stands out, and they recognize that today and yesterday, that KIPDA continues to stand out, and that we chose to select and create our own performance measures. All of our other counterparts in Kentucky and Indiana, if not all, virtually all, they chose a simpler option to support the state's targets, is what they say. We were smart enough or dumb enough, I think smart enough because they just commended us, so I'll say smart enough to say that, well, we work in 2 rural states, and our 2 states don't see eye to eye on some of these performance measures that we're required to include. So we ought to come up with our own regionally, and so we stand out in that regard. So we've been doing that for a while now. It's all we've known. You know, they said you should do it. We did it, and everybody else said, okay, we'll take the easy way out. So they commended us for that once again. So those are the 3 commendations. We had 4 recommendations that they mentioned. None of which should be tough. So they constructive criticism. Public involvement. They want to make sure that we are doing our best to in our public engagement to make sure that those that either don't have internet or have some disabilities, make sure that our public engagement can be reached by all, especially in a virtual world when we're doing meetings online and doing so many things virtually. We had a in 2019, we developed a freight plan, regional freight plan that many of you all were probably involved in back then. But as part of that freight plan, we said we'd have a freight advisory council or committee, subcommittee. Well, the pandemic happened and we never got that committee together. So they said, once you get that committee together, now it's about time to get committees back together. Make a concerted effort to emphasize among other things, safety on the freight corridors that we identified. So that's fine, we can do that. No about there. A lot of talk about our MOAs, memorandums of agreements. So we have 2 in particular, one of which kind of defines what we do at KIPDA and how we interact with NDOT, KYTC, and Tarp. So it's pretty standard contract language. It says all the different roles that each of those agencies plays. Our current one was agreed to in 2015. They would like us to update it to get that up to date. And as they said, and as we told them, and as they recognized, our new one's gonna look like our old one. It will have virtually all the same thing. So we can do that. You can get that done. And then last but not least, the way we account for projects in our TIP, they want to make sure that we are accounting for the entire project cost. Our TIP is that short range planning document. So the way we display it, we show just the years that are in the TIP. Okay. So if you've got a design and right away in our TIP, right, but you don't have construction yet. So those funds have not yet been identified. So they want to see funds that have not been yet identified. They want to see at least an estimate of those funds. So we've got that information in our internal project database. They want to see that put out to our public facing things like our website and some of our maps. So again, it was a very successful review. I want to give the Transportation Division staff across the board, I want to give them a ton of credit because like I said, this is a once every 4 years thing, and among other things, about half the staff that works here right now wasn't here last time 4 years ago. And so to get this report and to get this review and to get the kudos that we got today, I think is a tremendous thing for our division. So that concludes my report. I'd be happy to take any questions, but I do not need any action.
All right, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I sat here, I think in his exact chair 38 years ago. And Randy Simon was here. I can't remember who our engineer was 38 years ago.
Oh, it could have been Mr. Harold Toll, perhaps. Could have been a couple other gentlemen back in the day.
Well, Larry Cheney, who,
Norm Nezelkevich.
Nor could have been.
can't really remember, 38 years ago. But anyway, they said that I made the motion 38 years ago to move the Ohio River Bridges study forward. It should be in the record here, okay?
Mhm.
So, that's what they said I did when I was mayor the first time. Okay, here we are 38 years later. Seems like to me, should we, as a KIPDA board of directors that represents both sides of Ohio River, adopt a resolution asking Andy Bashir, Thomas Massey, our legislator, our congressman to do anything they can to remove their tolls from these bridges. Brent Spence is going to get supposedly no tolls on it. So why should Louisville continue to have tolls on ours, which costs you $10 a day to go back and forth a day, each trip? So why don't we adopt a resolution as a KIPDA board, both sides of the river, asking our state governors to please remove these tolls?
I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to do.
Has it been done?
No, it has not. Not this body. The state is Transportation
Okay, like
Cabinet.
this body, since we all represent both sides of the river.
Could that be done? Should that be done? That's up to you guys. But yes, I think that would be something that people would pay attention to. Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Okay.
I like the idea.
If you could present that as a motion, we can get a letter drafted for our chairman to sign.
You didn't do that 38 years ago?
No, I don't want to be the one suggested build them. I want to be the one that said, get the dang tolls off of them.
Yeah, if I can add to the conversation, currently, like the past couple of weeks, and it's been on the news even, right? Kentucky is making the case that we need to keep the toll increase much lower, down to the lower of either the inflation rate or the standard rate, the standard increase. Indiana has said kind of said no to that. They've said that they've got an Indiana toll road that stretches in the northern tier of the state, right? And so that I believe my understanding on that is that they said, well, it's not fair to do that here and not there type thing. So I believe that's the case that Indiana's making. I know there are conversations between INDOT and Kentucky. No, it's not the locals in Indiana. It's state government in Indiana. I would say that nobody has had to pay more of the cost of the tolls than our Hoosier friends from Southern Indiana, because so many places to visit on the Kentucky side for dinner, for work, otherwise.
But did Indiana say that they sold the tolls?
So
They sold the toll roads up there.
So I believe that's part of it, and I think both states in their tolling agreements, they have different eligibilities for what they could do and are able to do. So perhaps Kentucky's is a little more flexible than Indiana or in on some ways, but I think Indiana's might be more flexible in that they can spend it on more different things, right? They can spend it on different projects. Kentucky, I believe, I might be speaking out of turn here, but I think Kentucky can only really spend it on the bridges themselves. That's part of the contractual language or the bonds that were sent. That was sold. But I couldn't agree more that this region is incredible unfairness. For that matter, the Cincinnati region has significantly more bridges and lanes across the Ohio River than the Louisville region had or has even currently. And not that their needs are not important, they are, and both communities very much are at the crossroads, right? We are, all these industries that are located here at our airports and otherwise, they're here for a reason. They're here for a reason, mainly because we are so centrally located. We can get so many places from around this neck of the woods to all the other next of the woods that are around. So yes, we'd be interested in participating in that if that's this board's.
Are you making that motion?
Me?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, and our council or whoever, Jared can draft it and we can take action on it whenever you all choose to. I mean, I'm not sure it's worth anything, but it's a idea to see perhaps if we went on record to, I asked my wife the other night if she wanted to go to the Clarksville Seafood House. She said I would, but it's gonna cost us $10 to go over and back. So I said, let's don't go. Just kidding, I don't care how much.
Northern Kentucky's always had a pretty powerful lobby against tolls. People pay.
I mean, since they've sold their tolls off, I don't know if the federal government, the state government could ever buy that company out or not, but I don't know anything like that. Jared knows about that. But anyway, I don't know.
I don't think it worked to be on record. I mean, it can't hurt anything.
I mean, what's there?
Somebody wants to keep them. Anybody here want to keep them? Look, Kevin, you have to come over here.
Oh, yes. But we pay the middle version of the fee because we do have the transponder. I can tell you that both Clarksville, Jeffersonville, I do not know about New Albany, have passed a resolution exactly what you're speaking to, asking the state of Indiana to use some of their federal funds to get rid of the tolls, just like Kentucky has, like they're trying to do in Cincinnati. So, yeah, Clarksville is on record as being opposed to it.
Might add to the conversation that in recent past life, I did a lot of traffic data for KIPDA, right, and worked with data all the time. And a strong case could be made that while the bridges projects are great, we got two of the prettiest bridges you'll ever see. And when we got Spaghetti Junction, that was a bottleneck, and it's no longer a bottleneck, right? But the project or the tolls have probably stifled cross the regional mobility, right? Because of that burden that's put on the residents of both sides of the river. One example of that is the I-65 bridge, the old Kennedy Bridge and Sherman Minton Bridge used to be maybe close to double on Kennedy versus Sherman Minton. Now they basically flip-flop because one's freeze and one's not. The Clark Bridge, for that matter, is an antique, and it's carrying way too much traffic right now, quite frankly. And so the tolls have indeed stifled, on some level at least, the kind of cross-river mobility that we can only hope to promote at an agency like ours.
How much you think's owed on the bridges?
I think that the tolling and revenue study said basically that I think the total costs for Oaks till up to like 2047 or whatever it was, decades out. I believe the financing with all the financing costs was maybe $7 billion for a $2.5 billion. I don't remember the final total cost. $2.5 billion project. So the rest of it's in financing. Something like that.
He's making that motion. I'll
So
say.
even if the tolls were not done away with, they were at least reduced, supplemented in some way. I agree with John. It's fundamentally unfair to have a bridge, 100 miles up the road is free. And this one here, we got to pay for it. And I think we do stay out of over in Indiana as much as it is. I'm sorry to say, you gotta just avoid having to get stuck with that bill. And so some do, some don't,
Of course, Indiana may look at it, we don't want people over in Kentucky eating. So
Well,
let's keep them here.
I don't think.
Your dollars are just as good as our places, our dollars aren't good.
Yeah, you may figure you got more of them over there, it's just gonna keep them over there.
Well, is there a second on this?
You got a second.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, any further discussion?
Mayor, I live in Oldham, to come over here, come to work.
You pay $480 now, $480 over and $480
No, I
back?
have a transponder.
Okay, so what's that cost you?
Two.
something.
242
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Okay.
Kevin, could you please share the resolution that Clarksville passed?
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
All right, so we've got a resolution on the floor. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Motion carries. All right, I think we've got Andy here with one more shot,
Yes, sir.
KYTC contract.
So it's that time of the year where we are updating and hopefully approving our FY 2023 contracts for the new fiscal year. I think Paul's gonna bring something up, but straightforward request today for the board to approve what's known as our Metropolitan Planning Funds, our PL funds. That's the main funding source for the MPO's operations, pays salaries, benefits, equipment, whatnot, goes to fund other things like planning studies that we may contract out or provide money to agencies like Clarksville, as a matter of fact, to do. So this year, on the Kentucky side, and this is simply for the Kentucky side that we're approving here, or we're seeking approval for today. The amount is about $1.35 million. That's our annual funding. It's up from 1.125, I think 120, 1.2 last year. That's an increase of 12.5% in Kentucky. And if you think that's a lot, we got like a 25% increase in Indiana. So we'll probably have that contract next month. The reason why it's such a giant increase is through the new infrastructure law, the new bill. But all the costs are going up too. So the cost of everything's going up. So we've got 12.5% more in Kentucky. We're seeking approval today. The local match on that is a little bit tricky. It's tricky because KIPDA pays a good chunk of the match. It's 20%, it's 80-20, just like most transportation programs. But KYTC does this, it does not. KYTC pays 5% of that 20%. So KIPDA pays 15 and KYTC pays 5. There's an asterisk next to that KIPDA up there on that top line because that influx of money that we got this year, we aren't all the way ready to deploy it for our operations. So we made a lot available for some planning studies. Okay, so we can deploy that money to do some planning studies. And so the match to those dollars is paid for by the agencies that receive those funds. Elizabeth will be up here in a couple of agenda items to talk specifically about those. So that match is not paid for directly by KIPDA through KIPDA General Fund, but rather for the recipients of those studies. This year, for example, Metro Louisville got some, Oldham County did for Kentucky 3-29 study. And then also on the Indiana side, I know this is just about Kentucky, but for Clarksville got some money too. So that's one of them. The second one, if we can take them both at the same time, if that's okay with you, would be the funding for the regional rideshare program, known as the Every Commute Counts program. Elizabeth Bowling was here a couple times in the last few months to talk about that program and what she's got going on there. She's our manager of that program. That program receives basically project funds from the dedicated funds that the MPO or the TPC controls. And so in Kentucky, that amount is the same as last year, 1.1 million and change. Those funds are not matched by KIPDA through the general fund, but rather those funds are matched through the van pool fares. So the participants in the program, their fares serve as the local match for those federal at 1.1 million in federal dollars. We will get the Indiana versions of these contracts probably, I assume, very soon, and we'll bring that probably next month. So,
Is there a motion to accept these contracts?
So moved.
Or approve?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Any discussion, questions, or any? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Now, Tarp planning contracts, extensions. Elizabeth.
Good afternoon. I'm here to request approval to extend 2 contracts that we have with Tarp for 2 planning studies, the fleet electrification study And the mobility as a service study. KIPDA is the middleman for these funds. They are part of the 5303 discretionary pot of funding at the state. So we pass them from the state to Tarp. After consulting with Tarp, these studies were began a few years ago, but they just need a little bit more time to wrap them up. So we are wanting to extend those contracts to September of this year. KYTC has already approved this between them and us. So now it's just the contract between us and Tarp. So I am asking for board approval to extend those contracts.
These can be taken together.
Motion,
So moved.
second. Second. All right, motion made and second, discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Now, we have Elizabeth again, you're on Metropolitan planning studies.
Yes, as Andy just mentioned, we have 3 PL planning fund funded studies that we would like to enter into contracts with Louisville Metro, the town of Clarksville, and Oldham County. Those studies are going to be funded with an increase in funding from the new IIJA bill. We do not have the local match right now to provide to bring those studies to staff to utilize, so we are making these funds available to our planning partners to conduct these studies in their areas. The Louisville Metro study is going to be an ITS implementation plan. They're providing 50% match on that. Clarksville study is a thoroughfare study, specifically looking at their downtown area and connections for transportation around Origin Park and the redevelopment that they have in their downtown area. That local match is 29.45%, which is still above that typical 20% match. And then the last one is Oldham County, Kentucky 329 Bypass Access Management Study, Phase 1 data collection. This study has already started with a different pot of money, but they need some more to really finalize that data collection part. So these funds will help them fully round out that study and be able to complete it to their satisfaction. So that funding, that local match is also 29.45%. So I'm asking for board approval to enter into these contracts and they can be taken all at once.
Motion to approve.
Second. Do we need any abstentions here from respective to the board member? Evan and yourself. All right, that motion is second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? So, yes.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Now we are headed toward the safe for streets, roads for all. Alex, or so, please.
Close.
Very close. Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Judge. I'm Alex Bazorski, a transportation planner, relatively new, started in March for those of you who haven't said hello to. Hello, good afternoon. I have the pleasure to talk about a opportunity that KIPDA Transportation is really excited about with a new federal discretionary grant program called the Safe Streets and Roads for All. This is coming out of the bill, the bipartisan infrastructure law that was passed in November. It's basically a new stream of funding for decreasing and ultimately hopefully eliminating fatalities and serious injuries on the region's roadways nationwide. It is a decent amount of change, $5 billion for 5 years nationwide, $1 billion each year. The program is broken down into 2 types of grant opportunities. There is the action plan grants and the implementation grants. The action plan grants are basically putting together a deep analysis of where your problems are for roadway safety and coming up with a priority plan and list of projects to fix the most egregious of those. The implementation grants are to pay for what the action plan grant has said you would be looking for. The catch in all of it is you cannot do an implementation grant unless you have a certified action plan grant to go forward. So basically in the region, with the exception of Louisville Metro, no one has the, what would really count as an action plan grant, but KIPDA staff is recommending consideration for a region-wide application to get an action plan grant that would, for any, if we were successful, any participating jurisdiction would be able to get into this, going with us and a consultant to do a deep study of where the highest safety problems are and really back that up with numbers, both in terms of what you might say past performance, where you've seen the biggest crashes in the past, as well as doing a systemic analysis for sort of on paper where you would see the biggest danger zones in the future. And then you would then put yourself in position after going through this action plan to be eligible for a much larger amount of federal funding to support the implementation of actually getting these programs implemented and hopefully a lot of these problems taken care of and a much safer, more sustainable transportation network for the entire region. So what we've done, we have briefed TPC about this and have sent out a large email to TPC and RTC members and have asked everybody to get back to us if they're interested, not necessarily a commitment, by close of business on Monday. Our rough estimate from the initial research, and we'll be doing a lot more in the coming weeks, is that you'd be looking at probably an application of about $500,000 to $1 million, somewhere in there. It would require a 20% local match, $100,000 or $200,000, which for one entity can be pretty daunting. But the big reason why we're excited about this is because you get, for a lot of smaller jurisdictions, a real economy of scale for potentially putting together a pretty useful plan that can, again, help secure, hopefully, some funding in the near future from the feds, but also can position for a lot of other funding opportunities and just be used for traditional funding pots like Highway Safety Improvement Program and other pieces. So don't need any action on this today, but happy to answer any questions that y'all might have.
Is the action plan portion of it going to eat up all the money for the implementation plan?
No, they would be completely separate.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I hate to study stuff to death and then we don't have any money to do anything with it.
So the way the feds have broken this out is for the first year at least, 40% of the available money is only for action plans. The other percentage is for only implementation plans. We presume they'll have some dichotomy like that moving forward. Exactly what that breakdown will be, we'll see.
All right, thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
In the interest of moving along here, we're going to push number 13 off to next month. I'd like to ask Daniel Story to talk to us about the community and economic development contract.
Well, I'll get to brag next month, y'all. So get ready for that. Okay.
By this month.
Well, I'm trying to. They just kicked my agenda item out. They want you to get out. I agree. They don't think you've got the patience to sit here long enough. Okay, this is said contract, so I did not have time to get this in your all's packet, so I apologize. There's 3 contracts I'm asking for approval for Jared to enter into, and that is for Cleaner Water Program Grant Administration. That's for the City of Milton, for Henry County Water District, and Oldham County Water District. The City of Milton's contract is for $1,500. Henry County Water District is for $3,200. Oldham County Water District is for $31,230. We can take these all at once. Action is requested.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, Jessica, social services here.
First of all, nice job to the transportation.
Well, thank you very much.
Daniel and I knew that Andy was gonna take over the agenda and we gladly handed the baton for you. Go for it. Let transportation shine this month. So I have some business items for y'all. It's agenda item number 15. Thank you, sir, in your packet. I believe I need to take each of these separately.
You could, when you get to the KHD contract, I'll speak on that.
Thank you, sir. So the first one, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, for your consideration is a request for us to modify the Tri-County Community Action Agency FY22 3D budget. 3D is health promotion and disease prevention.
They are overperforming in their contract, and we do have the funding available to move to them for FY 24 or 22. So we're asking for permission to amend that budget for that agency. We'll need Tri-County to abstain from that vote, anybody that serves on the board.
Motion here. Second, all right, any discussion on this? It's a $5,000 increase.
And then we believe that's a slight overestimate, but we wanted to cover our bases, so we didn't have to come back.
All right, thank you. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain. Next.
Thank you. The next one is related to our 3C procurement. So as you all are aware, we have a newer food system out there that requires ovens and the freezer space to catch up with everything. So with House Bill 1 money coming in and our need to get equipment out there, Department for Aging and Independent Living said, can you wrap as much of this up in FY 22 as possible? And we said, sure, we're going to do our best to. So this is to request that we amend Masterson's contract as a vendor to purchase that equipment up to $100,000, with the majority of that as much as possible in FY 22. I say that because as we open the sites for going into FY 23, we may need another oven or one or two. So it will kind of bleed over. We're going to do our best to keep it here, modify FY 22's contract, and then place whatever we need in FY 23's Masterson's contract for that. We've done an estimate that it's about $100,000 at this point. So we're asking for permission to authorize us to modify Masterson's current contract for those purchases in FY 22.
Now,
But
why do you need to buy Masterson's equipment for them?
Oh,
You say
thank you.
$100,000. Why?
No, it will be maintained as Cabinet for Health and Family Services. They did estimates for us on that equipment through various different manufacturers.
But then KIPDA will own it then?
Yes, it will remain Cabinet for Health and Family Services equipment.
When it quits, we have to replace it.
We will replace it when it quits, yes. Yes, with the Title III funding.
Okay.
Yeah, but
it's
it'll be
used by
taxed.
Mastersons, is that right?
Sorry.
Used by Mastersons?
It's used for the food storage for our food service program. He's a vendor that is going to purchase the equipment under his contract for this service, which he's done before in such as catering pans, when they did hot food service, thermometers, things like that.
This will be for the location of the sites where most of the food is delivered.
Yes, store the frozen food and to warm up the meals for the congregants.
And they're not the traditional ovens, Mayor. These are smaller. They're designed to heat up the individual meals of the
Yeah.
servers and seniors.
But yes, it does, it's not Masterson's property. It remains they're gonna do the purchase.
But we've always supplied this equipment for Masterson's, correct?
Through, yes,
Or whatever.
yeah, through our traditional, yes, caterer. Mhm. And it's all been tagged before as well, sir. Mhm.
You need a motion?
Yes, motion and a second.
to help
Thank you.
So,
Wish I had a little demonstration. Here's where we are.
all right, I got a second, we got a motion second, any further discussion of this? All in favor, please say aye.
This next one is new to us. Myself and the executive director, including some other AAA directors, have, Tralta is a caregiver app or platform. It is one of a kind in its nature. It was actually presented to us by the Department for Aging and Independent Living. We met with them several times over the past few months. We believe this is a product that will greatly impact positively our caregiver network. So basically caregivers in our network can sign into this platform, get a lot of the services we can upload into there. They have their own built-in trainings that are evidence-based. And then we can also put information in there of our own. We also are probably going to look into 2 other AAAs that are interested as well. So we'll be sharing information across the state. We're hoping to grow this in future years. So this would be the base year starting out to get our current caregivers into it and then the general public. So this is a growth thing that we see happening over the next few years and maybe even permanently. So This is an overestimate as well. I think it's gonna end up being about $27,000. I just wanted you all to know that. We're currently negotiating with them. They're looking to issue a contract for us to review, so I'm asking permission for myself and the executive director to continue to evaluate that and moving forward with up to $30,000. And we do have that funding available for our estimates on our budget.
That motion, there's second. Second. Any discussion on this? All in favor, please say aye.
Thank you. So the next one on the agenda is SAMS, which is also WellSky. If you're familiar, we are currently using two different database systems. One is SAMS, one is ServTracker. ServTracker has always been KIPDA's primary. Over the past 2 years, especially during the pandemic, at some point, KIPDA did not move fully into SAMS. We chose to be in two systems and to make it work. At this point in time, it is no longer working for us. The Department for Aging and Independent Living is very adamant about us basically having digital client files. The way that we do that is to transition fully into SAMS along with the rest of where the rest of the state has been. So that is going to cost us about $90,000. I do want you to know we have had active conversations with Bill about impact of this transition. I know Jerry's shaking his head. It has to be done at this point, gentlemen. We are going to request ARPA funding for that, but if it is not approved, we have also worked it into our FY23 budget. But I want you all to know the intentions of where we want to seek that funding first. It is through the ARPA funding. It does affect all Title III services. It will change the way that we do things out there, all providers and ourselves. We will present a plan to the Department for Aging and Independent Living by the end of this month. That is a 3-month transition plan that will have various steps of this in. The cost here is our estimate of moving into it. Please know that the first year, as with any system change, is the hardest year, but we hope to work out any kinks quickly to move forward.
What's this do?
This is the database system for all our client files. So essentially, care plan, our assessments, our case notes, all the client documentation goes into this system. Currently, we have two. So our front-facing system, as KIPDA, as providers out in our network, is ServTracker. We have had several processes in place for more than a decade, right, Jennifer? More than a decade, I believe. Where 15? It's been a long time. So I always look to them because, as you know, so basically right now we have created systems that allow for ServTracker to transfer data into SAMS. So there's all these processes that we've done for years and years. Those processes collected data points, not actual forms, not the paperwork, basically, that needs to be seen by the Department for Aging and Independent Living. So the only system we can do that in is SAMS. If that helps to explain it a little bit better.
Jessica and I have advocated to keep on the systems that we're currently using, and there's no other option. We have to make this transition or we're out of compliance. So we really don't have another choice.
We don't.
How much is it?
It's an estimated $90,000 for this coming contract year.
Okay, well, we all love bureaucrats telling elected officials what they have to do.
Motion. I'll second it.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Jared said we had to do it, so put that in the record.
It can go.
It can go in there twice for me too. Yeah, we've done everything, and thank you, Jared, Mr. Haley, thank you for staying right by my side through all of that.
She said something about using ARPA money. Is KIPDA getting ARPA money?
It's within our contracts through the Department for Aging. Jessica and Trish were at the training this week, and at the training, they said that ARPA would be an eligible use of funds for this.
Yes, it was one of the things they actually presented under ARPA that we did not know prior to this finance training that Dale had. And one of the very first things it said was additional seats for SAMs, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, we have a small portion of SAMs because of that transfer. So we're adding to it. So we are going to request ARPA use first and foremost for these seats.
All right.
It helps any, but I think that our current year is like 20,000 is our current year's with all staff, so it's not a full $90,000 increase. It's more of a $70,000 increase.
It'll all balance as we walk forward. Because we'll have some duplicate, obviously, I'm sure you all know that, we'll have a few duplicate costs as we work to transition everybody through the systems. And then we'll straighten out next year. All the better for it.
Okay, next one, Jessica.
Thank you. So this one's a little bit longer, and I apologize for that. But essentially, we're requesting permission to issue our contracts for FY '23 up to the total amount for FY '22 for each contractor. In that meeting that we had that Mr. Haley just mentioned, we will not receive our allocations until June 30th. And as you all know, services start on July 1st. So there are a couple exceptions to what we're requesting here. One is obviously the Title III procurement. That's different than FY '22's contracts, which have already been approved by you all. So we're just asking to issue those that you all have approved through procurement. We have 1, 2, 3 agencies, 3 contractors that I'd like to point out to you. One is our U of L Traeger, which is our caregiver 3E services. They requested a 14% increase in their overall budget, but we walked through that and evaluated it. That is due to just a slight increase in their unit price, which we believe is reasonable. But the majority of that is because they propose to serve more clients, which we want them to do. So that is the reason for that one. Tri-County Community Action Agency requested an increase in their unit price as well. And we believe that's very reasonable. We've looked at our other transportation providers. We believe that's a reasonable request from them. We need permission to negotiate available funding with legal aid. They proposed twice their budget. So I will have to bring that one back to you in July, likely, to move forward with that. And I just wanted to remind you that we are modifying any contract related to elder service movement and establishment of services and other contracts with their funding. So.
Motion.
So move.
Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, Kentucky Health Benefit Exchange. I always hate having to ask for ratification of contracts rather than approval, but the way the state procurement contracting works, we often receive our contracts late and they're required to sign in short order to avoid having the starting date of the contract pushed back. In the instance of the Kentucky Health Benefit Exchange contract, this was received at close of business last Friday. We were told at the beginning of the week that a delay in signing would push the start date from July 1st to July 15th. The new KHB contract is a 2-year contract for $2,271,538.74 in each fiscal year. This is a significant increase in funding, and one of the requirements is to increase staffing count by 50% to meet the new deliverables. You all will remember we began this program in fiscal year 14 as a lump sum contract. In fiscal year 17, the program transitioned to a cost reimbursement contract with a 10% cap on the indirect rate. To continue the program with this limitation, through attrition, staff transition from KIPDA employees to employees through a temp agency. We continue advocating for established indirect rate to be recognized, and it is with other contracts within the state, including the Department for Local Government, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and the Department for Aging and Independent Living, which is contained within that Cabinet for Elder Family Services, where KHB is housed. Mayor Chapman, in his capacity as KIPDA board chairman, was also a party to these discussions. Unfortunately, we have only been able to get the indirect rate increased to 15%. With consideration of potential labor concerns, there being a blurred line between KIPDA employee conductors and temp agency conductors, last year the board approved the transition of all KHB staff being KIPDA employees. While the move required a transfer from the general fund, the overall benefit to the agency of continuing the program was recognized, and in the early years of the contract, the program generated notable revenue that went into the general fund. The new contract requiring an increase in staffing levels would also require additional transfer from the general fund to support the program. This left us with an obvious dilemma. Either we end the contract, and this would require the layoff of 7 employees after June 30th. Some of these employees have been with the agency since 2013. By ending the contract, that would also be a cost across the agency, annual raise or indirect rate. The shared cost would have to be absorbed by the other programs. Last year, we estimated these costs to be $13,102 on community and economic development, $48,870 in transportation, and $85,515 in social services. And also, the other obvious impact would be the loss of the service to our region. We immediately began discussions with KHB and the Cabinet for Health and Services about the reconsideration of recognizing the indirect rate. Discussions continued into early yesterday evening and included the Executive Director of the Kentucky Health Benefit Exchange, the Commissioner of Medicaid, the Office of Contracting and Procurement, and even the Secretary of the Cabinet. What we heard was the Cabinet for Health and Family Services held KIPDA in very high regard. Whenever there was a pilot program, they contacted KIPDA. Whenever there was a software that didn't know, they contacted KIPDA. But due to the impact on contracts across the cabinet, they were unwilling to go any higher than 15% on indirect costs. The cabinet recently ended a relationship with Eastern Kentucky University for providing training due to not recognizing Eastern Kentucky's indirect cost rate. So this is just the overall cabinet stance. With that determination, we began exploring how we could make this work. The increase in funding for the 2-year contract is expected to be temporary and not extend past the contract period. Additionally, the new deliverables are structured in a manner that office staff could process applications and take phone referrals, while our normal team of connectors would continue hosting events across the region. This would allow us to bring on the new hires as temporary employees and continue the program while at the same time reducing the required transfer of the general fund. We would be allowed to charge 15% of the staffing cost, which would increase the cost sharing and reduce the need for the general fund transfer. We presented the scenario to Mitzi yesterday, and she feels with these being temporary funds and a clear delineation between KIPDA employees and the temporary employees, we would avoid any potential labor concerns. As we draft the job descriptions, Mitzi will review to be sure the separation is clear. As with most of our contracts, KHB comes with a termination clause provided a 30-day notice, so I felt comfortable moving forward and signing to avoid a lapse in service. I'm asking the board for ratification of signing this contract, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Did I understand there was a 50% increase in employees?
Within that program from November of 2021, we had an increase by 7. Currently, we have 7 employees within there, so we'd have to hire another 3, potentially 4 staff members to this. And those would be the positions that we would bring on as temporary employees.
3 employees.
Yes, sir.
50% kind of catches my ear.
Yeah, the 50% within that specific program.
By what date?
Well, again, we are waiting for some of these deliverables even to be rolled out. So it will probably be later on this fall before we would start hiring these positions.
Requiring the people be hired, I don't know what everybody else is here. We're having a heck of a time filling our positions. Yeah.
Kelly is aware of that, and it's going to be a challenge, but it's one that we think working through some of our established relationships with the temp agencies that we'll be able to achieve.
What's this job pay?
Around, what was it, around 35, 36?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, the
The
salary.
typical one is 35,600 starting out as a bachelor's. The temporary staff members coming on will have different job descriptions. So we'll work with the temp agency and the rest of our staffing to get to a cost that is reasonable for those. And I would like to say to the board in your comment to the 50%, yes, that stood out to us obviously as well. Even with deliverables and other contracts we have in aging, I think it's highly apparent, you all know, and you just mentioned of what's happening out there. We need to do our best job to demonstrate our efforts to do this. But I do believe that we can get to this one. Yes.
When's the last time the pay classification plan's been looked at here at KIPDA?
Well, we looked at that job specifically about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
Should it be looked at again?
Well, this was straight from Department of Labor. On those, they're non-exempt positions. We thought they were exempt positions, but they're non-exempt.
Well, I'm just talking about in general at KIPDA.
Oh,
We have done that within the last 2 years
Yeah.
through a network, statewide across the area development network, cost survey, and we've also looked at some comparable positions within our region to do the surveys.
Okay, is there a motion that we ratify Jarrett's signing of this? Motion.
Thank you all.
Well, we didn't vote yet.
Part of the works.
Can I withdraw my? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Kelly.
Just so you got elder
Got anything more?
Oh, I just want to provide you a brief update on ElderServe. We have had some positive movement, working with our other providers. We're looking for a response soon from Parks and Rec Shawnee Community Center. Props to our 3D planner, Veselina. She worked some magic and found some connections for some of those former employees that ElderServe was unable to help us connect with, and we found a few. They're very excited. They're talking to the staff at Shawnee. So I say all that to say this, we're moving forward. We're hoping to get the remaining services in place within the next few weeks. Thank you, Lord, as we continue to walk through this. And for, I would like to say again, thank you to all the other community partners that reach out to spaces. We will continue to look in those spaces and speak to those partners about either expanding those services into those areas or new ones with any funding we have available. So it's been it's coming out positive from a very negative happening in our community. We just need to sign all the things and move forward, and now it's opening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, Kelly will discuss personnel.
sure. Real quickly, one new hire, Jordan Champion. He's been hired as our economic resiliency intern. He'll be working part-time. He started June 13th. He has earned a bachelor's degree in and is currently completing his master's degree in agricultural and applied economics from the University of Kentucky. We had one resignation, Asia Drake, to resign as a case manager in our Medicaid waiver program in social services. Her last day will be tomorrow. We have the following position vacancies: a grant administrator and planner, and a community and economic development planner in the Division of Community and Economic Development. We have in social services, Connect Outreach Education Enrollment Coordinator, a service advisor for the home and community-based waiver, and a case manager for the Shell P waiver. These jobs, as always, can be found on our website, KIPDA.org. And our current staff count is 81 full-time permanent and 2 part-time permanent. This concludes my report. Actions requested if there are no questions.
How long have these vacancies been advertised?
We started probably last month. Well, CED was it May? Yeah, so not too long, maybe May. Once I get to like one vacancy, then all of a sudden 5 or 6 pop up. I never quite had zero, never had 0 vacancies.
There are motions to accept this report. So, okay, second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
The reason I asked that is we're looking for assistant planning director in Oldham County. You got every job board out there.
I know, it's
No
hard.
one seems to want, you know, and we pay well,
Yeah.
pay well, you know, so.
He's trying to steal, yeah, he's trying to steal people.
Anybody within the sound of my voice. pay well.
Judge, 18.5, judge says they pay well.
All right, we're Agency non-health insurance, Tom, that's Jared.
I'm requesting board approval for calendar year 22 KECO unemployment insurance fund, fiscal year 23 KECO workers' compensation insurance fund, and fiscal year 23 KECO all lines fund, which includes the buildings, contacts, and liability. You refer to page 37 in your packet. You'll see the fiscal year 23 or calendar year 22 amount, as well as the prior year amounts and the dollar change of the percentage.
There a motion to accept these changes?
Who's that insurance through?
KECO.
KECO.
Yes, sir.
Motion.
Favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Agency budget, again, Jared.
Kind of goes back to what Jessica was alluding to earlier. As a special purpose governmental entity, KIPDA is required to have a budget estimate submitted by July 15th in the SBG portal. Constructing an accurate budget, unfortunately, isn't possible as we're still awaiting our allocations from the Department of Aging and Independent Living. As Jessica said, those likely will not be received until June 30th. In order to comply with the SBG requirements, I am asking court approval for the fiscal year 23 preliminary estimate, which can be found in your board packet. This does not have any backup documentation because, again, this is just a preliminary estimate. At the July board meeting, with knowledge of our allocations, Tom will be able to present our full budget with all of the budget pages. But again, this is essentially a placeholder to keep us in compliance with SBG while we await for our allocations.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Now we're on intergovernmental reviews, Jared.
We have 4 intergovernmental reviews, A through D. These have all been submitted for review by the local municipality. There are no comments. These 4 projects can be taken together. Action is requested.
Yeah, I guess if you're an affected county, you have to abstain.
In this case, they can.
They don't need to abstain.
Yes, sir.
Motion to accept these. Second. Favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Jared, yes, it's correct.
Well, I just want to again recognize the transportation staff. Amy and the team have done a phenomenal job. Amy has been in this position for less than a year, since just in this calendar year, he's had to replace over 100 years worth of experience within the division. And through some of the people who presented today, Elizabeth has really stepped up and taken on a larger role. Alex has been a tremendous addition to the department. So again, wonderful job by Andy. I think, as you could tell by the federal comments, that we're doing a great job here. So again, wonderful job.
It seemed like Andy had a full head of hair last year.
We
I
have.
don't know anymore, I promise.
We have one travel item for board consideration. It is the transportation planners meeting. This is for the regional transportation program, which is the program that Randall is in. It's to Hopkinsville, Kentucky, July 12th to 13th. Estimated cost of $365.
Motion approved. Yeah. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And then finally, just next month's meeting, we have the Regional Planning Council, July 12th, 11 o'clock, Water Management Council later that afternoon at 1:30. TTCC, Transportation Technical Coordination Committee, will be July 13th at 12:30, and then back here in the boardroom on July 28th, we'll have the Transportation Policy Committee at 12:30, and the board meeting at 2. This concludes my report, but I also want to recognize Stacy Rockaway with Congressman Massey's office. You haven't been back to Thank you for being here. Concludes my report.
Everyone for being here today. Motion. Thank you, all in favor.
Chairmanship, yeah.